BRB UK. Worse teeth, better accents.
Hello, and indeed ahoy hoy. It is episode 453 of BRB UK. I'm Dan, I'm one of your hosts. Hello, how are you? Good, marvellous. I'm only joined by one other this week, but it is one other from another mother. It's Timothy Hibbs Esquire. How are you?
Yeah, all right, sir. All right. How's you, sir?
Well, you know, I think I'm okay.
Okay.
Solid.
That's a good thing to think.
6 and a bit out of 10 is how I would review the last week. Mostly because I've had to adult far too much, and I don't like having to adult. Talking of having to adult, Coleman is having to adult hard this week. He is well, he is okay. He just
Hard
can't
adulting.
be with us
He's
today.
playing adult in hard mode.
He is. He's said on hardcore mode. But he's kindly, however, editing this show. So even though you can't hear him, you can still feel the caress of his fingertips on your auditory cortex as he makes this sound super sexy. Thank you, Coleman.
Yeah, his magic is still tangible.
Yeah, exactly. And he was even a legend, did an agenda for us. So he's a double legend. So everyone, get to Discord, tell Coleman he's a legend. Well, ideally the BRB, but the Big Red Barrel Discord, because otherwise people are just going to go, what's a Coleman?
Yeah, what's a Coleman?
What's a Coleman? Anyway, we've been playing video games. We have been playing the video games.
Yeah.
In between having to work and stuff. And Tim,
yes.
I'm going to tell you very briefly about something I've played. It is literally only my first impressions. You were kind enough to ping a review code in my direction from the publishers of Spelunka Hd Deluxe, which is a remake of a classic 80s game, is my understanding. I've only played a little bit of it on Switch.
Yep.
It's
very
slavishly deferent to the source material, and by that I mean it's rock hard in an 80s kind of way.
Ooh, like Rambo.
And best played in its original 8-bit form, because otherwise you can't see what's going on, because it doesn't telegraph anything very well, like obstacles you need to jump over, and it is a hard game. Anyway, I haven't probably given it a fair enough crack to give a completely honest answer on what I think of it. So I'll report back next week. Apologies, publishers.
Deeper. Spelunk
I shall spelunk deeper. I shall spee in my lunk is what I shall do. But I thought you'd rather than me make up a load of crap, I thought you'd probably prefer me to actually have an informed opinion for the first time in my life. So there we go. So I'll report back next week some more Spelunker HD Deluxe.
Okay.
So what have you been playing anyway, mate?
I have been playing a veritable smorgasbord of games this week. So I'm going to
cheese. I like cheese.
Very quickly, cover a few things and sprinkle a few things. Mainly influenced by a lot of Game Pass stuff, but before we get to that, I will mention a couple of other things. So a little game called Hanafuda, and I mention it because it's a Japanese card game, a kind of set collecting game. The only thing that I can think that most people will know that it kind of pulls from is like a game like Rummy, like a card game, but it's you're collecting sets of cards and stuff. It's a game that I encountered on a game I talked about on the podcast previously called 51 Worldwide Games, I think the Switch game was called.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a game that's got, chess and checkers and a lot of other things. And one of the things is a game called Hanafuda, which was a game originally made by Nintendo when they made
back in the 1890s.
Yeah. And I'm mentioning it because I'm not sure if it's still be available by the time you're hearing the podcast. Hopefully that will be the case. But yeah, they released an actual physical set of this in a little form. And actually, I'm going to have to do
Tim's
this
off. Yep. Tim's off. For those of you who are listening to the audio version of this show, Tim is podcasting.
Just remembered I can do this and annoy Coleman. But yeah, little Hanafuda, little deck of cards they released that you can buy via the Nintendo store.
And it's actually OG Nintendo Hanafuda.
Yeah, and it's basically it's the Nintendo card version in the 51 worldwide games that is still got like Mario and Peach and a few of the noticeable Nintendo characters, which does make it slightly easier to kind of like match sets and then kind of remember what you're going for. But yeah, it's one of those games that I think that the digital version definitely helps you like learn to play the game, and I think especially as the instructions in the set that you buy are in Japanese only.
Nice.
You're either going to need the internet or a copy of the digital game to get the full thing. But I just thought I'd mention it in case any of our listeners who know us through Tabletop Tuesday stuff that we do like our tabletop games and may have an interest. It's definitely a kind of very niche type thing. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention it in case anyone else is interested in picking up a set. I don't know how limited they are, but yeah, I imagine they were fairly limited in supply, basically.
Now, I know I often say New Age fun with a vintage feel, but this truly is New Age fun with a real vintage ass feel to it. I mean...
it's a 2-player game as far as I know. I don't think you can play it with any other people. It's just 2-player in the video game version that I've played, at least. But yeah, like it's an interesting collectible card game. I think it might be harder to learn with the card game than it is playing the digital version. But just thought I'd mention it in case any of our listeners are interested, because I happened to mention it on Twitter and a few people reacted and grabbed themselves a set as well. So just in case any of our listeners are interested. Yeah, like it's a really tiny little deck of cards. I didn't think it was going to be a full-sized like card deck, but I didn't think it was going to be quite as small as it is, basically.
I think Hanafuda cards are smaller anyway, aren't they?
Yes, but obviously I'd only played the digital version, so I wasn't sure of the actual size of the cards in the game. But yeah, like as I said, I've got a physical set now. I'm going to learn to play the physical set, even though the Japanese instructions make that slightly harder.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, that is really awesome, actually. I mean, I think that's a really cool little thing. It looks like you can get them via retailers other than Nintendo at the moment. I'm trying my best to find whether or not you still get them on nintendo.co.uk. You can definitely get them on stores such as Amazon. Other companies are available that tend to pay more tax.
Okay, and just for the record, I think it was £22 for the set of Nintendo UK, so obviously don't pay too much over the odds for that price. But yeah, as I said, a little interesting video game and history of Nintendo type thing that some of our listeners might be interested in, basically.
Good.
Another thing I'll just mention, just because I played it, I was going to talk about it last week, but then didn't make it to the show. Was it last week or the week before? Anyway, but yeah.
You were waving some kind of Evercade cartridge at me.
Yeah, I was playing Tanglewood and Xeno Crisis, which are two interesting games just because, and playing this on the Evercade, which you mentioned before, which I was given a review unit of the Evercade, but this is the game that I bought myself because I was interested in playing it. And it's £15 for the dual cartridge with both of the games on it. And they're both interesting games because they're games made in a retro style. I know Tanglewood is made
you always
with
with the vintage feel, love it.
Yeah, Mega Drive kind of game. I'm not sure if Xeno Crisis was Mega Drive, but it was definitely that sort of 8-bit era type thing, or 16-bit era.
Thank you.
And yeah, like they are both old school games made. Yeah, well, new games made recently, but in an old school type fashion. And Tanglewood was interesting as well because I actually played it in preview when I went up to develop Brighton and talked about it on the show a couple of years ago now. But yeah, I met the developer as he was, showing off the game and stuff like that. And so it was one I was really interested to pick up. Like, he originally released it on a Mega Drive cartridge, basically.
Yeah, because it was in 2019 they released
it. Yeah, 2019. So yeah, as I said, a couple of years ago. And I think it was just before it was about to come out and he was about to release it that I saw it in preview and spoke about the show. But this is my first chance to actually play the game. And it does play like an old school Mega Drive platformer, which, as listeners will know, I'm not necessarily the best fan of. But this is like there's not anything like too taxing on the platforming elements. There is platforming elements where you do have to do things, but it's mainly puzzle solving, like you get a power from doing a certain thing, and then you have to use that power in the correct place to traverse a bit of the environment without giving too much away. But a fun little platform game, and I've messed around with that. But Xeno Crisis was the one I didn't know so much, but is a good
so just to correct myself, Tanglewood 2018, Xeno Crisis released in 2019, also on the Mega Drive cartridge.
There you go. So, and then Xeno Crisis was one I didn't know as well, but it's a kind of twin stick shooters before twin stick shooters, like before you had twin sticks.
Smash TV?
Yeah, a bit like which you move with the D-pad, and then whichever direction you're pressing in is the direction you're firing in, basically.
Nice.
And it's an old school, like, clear the room full of aliens, get to move on to the next room, get to the boss, kill the boss, get to the next thing. But yeah, like it's an old school little game, and that was actually really good. I really enjoyed that. So like as I said, two little games.
I think you can also get Xeno Crisis if you haven't got an Evercade. I believe you can also pick it up on PC via Steam.
Yeah, and I think Tanglewood the same. I think they eventually released to Steam as well, or I'm not sure, but a PC platform basically.
Yeah, so I mean it's listed as having releases for the Switch, PS4, Vita, Xbox One, Windows, Mac, Linux, the Dreamcast, Evercade, and the Neo Geo. Why not? So why make life easy for yourself, Bitmap Bureau?
I thought this was a good one to get on the Evercade because then I can actually play both games on the go and play them on the TV, which is one of the advantages of that. So yeah, anyway, that was good. Other than that, generally be getting stuck into a selection of very varied games on Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah.
So, again,
I must admit, I'm going to slightly hijack this before you start. I've been doing the same. Now, because I've played Microsoft Flight Simulator on PC, made my brain hurt. I
don't have enough hard drive space for that. That's my problem.
So I thought I'd try it on the Series X, and it's pretty good. It's quite obviously designed for a PC, not an Xbox. I think they've got some control optimization to do, but considering it's being powered by a console that costs about a quarter as much as the requisite PC you'd need to buy to play it. I mean, the frame rate's a bit slow, but it looks pretty great, to be honest with you. I think it's going to benefit from having a proper HOTAS setup, but as a technical showcase of what they're able to squeeze out of the Series X at the moment, really, really good. Really, really impressed. But it's hard as nails and definitely is not best played with a controller. And it's friendlier than it was to understand what's going on than on the original PC release, but is definitely hard to get into.
Well, that's one I'm hoping still there when I upgrade my hard drive, basically. But it looks fun. And which, I like people taking pictures and flying around, and it looks good. But
I flew over my house.
Oh, did you fly into your house?
It looks nothing like mine. My house isn't that big, mate. My house doesn't look like my house, but the notional bit of Slough where I live is in there. But yeah, I mean it's a massive download.
So like 100 megs. 100 gig, sorry.
109 gig or something, which ridiculous. For a Series S, that's like going to be half your available storage. Or something and then ridiculous.
Some, I think,
Flippin' heck. But I mean, it's worth keeping an eye out for the storage expansion cards, because I actually managed to pick one up for 170 quid.
Okay. That's not bad. Which is still expensive, but...
Don't get me wrong, that's still a metric arse ton of money, but compared to the 220 quid it usually costs, keep an eye out. Apparently the prices do fluctuate quite a bit. So
Okay. Worth keeping an eye on at some stage.
But what you have played is something I wanted to ask about. Because this is a game that I'm rather ashamed I haven't played before, but I've always been kind of interested. And I heard that it's been given a spit and polish for the Series X and S, and that is Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice.
Yes, and
hit me with some facts, Timothy.
I think Coleman talked about it on the show before, possibly.
Yes.
But I didn't really play it before the visual upgrade, so I'm not the best placed for kind of comparisons on what it did before. But I can tell you it looks fantastic.
Fantastic.
There's some really interesting stuff with the audio, so it's one I'm glad I knowing that, I kind of went in with headphones on rather than kind of relying on speakers. But yeah, like it's right. It's one of those things. I want to tempt people into trying it, so I'm tempted to not give away too much about how it works in case anyone has managed to avoid spoilers to this point.
I have managed to avoid spoilers to this point.
I will say that it's very telling that both from a cinematic presentation standpoint and an attitude towards what's going on in the game, the first bit of any text that comes up in the game are the two names of the people that have worked on the game, and one of them is the historical advisor, and the other one is I can't remember exactly what it is, but I think it was mental health advisor, basically. And yeah, you can already tell there's some very interesting stuff done with the audio in terms of like nagging doubts in your mind and the kind of video game personification of that, and kind of that playing out as you're traversing the environment and finding your way through things. There's also a kind of, and again, don't want to give too much away, but there's a system of almost roguelike elements that kind of surface at some point. And the combat is very visceral, is entirely the right word for it, but it's
nice.
Very
literal,
kind of...
Are there literal bits of viscera?
Literal bits of viscera. But it's almost like very oppressive, very in your face, and very, kind of relentless almost kind of thing. But yeah, anyway, as I said, without giving too much away, it's something I definitely encourage people to play. Like, I've picked up and played a little bit, and I'm definitely going to go back and kind of... I think you've definitely got to be in the right frame of mind to play it properly as well. So, like, there's some warnings that possibly go on with some of that as well. But
so, I mean, that's one thing I was going to ask. I think one of the reasons why I haven't kind of played it is that, I'm a pretty open book about my mental health, and, I've had some struggles with it in the past. And, it was when I was like, am I in the right place to play this game? And I do wonder if you have to be in the right place, as it were.
I think so. Like, yeah. I don't think it necessarily... I think it almost normalized feelings that everyone has to an extent, and I think that's something that is actually quite good. It's handling it in a sensitive enough way that I don't think it will be destructive for most people, basically. Okay. So, like, as I said, that won't necessarily be the case for everyone, and there is some warning with that. But I really like what I've seen of it in a, as I said, cinematical presentation is very high, as we know from... if
it's got cinematical presentation, I'm up for that.
If it's is it Ninja Theory, the company behind it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, from stuff that we've seen from them before, the presentation and the thought behind the gameplay and how that interacts with the environment and everything else, and it's a very well crafted piece of video game entertainment. But as you say, I think it helps to be in the right frame of mind and to be in a strong frame of mind to possibly play it as well. But yeah.
Okay.
Definitely encourage people to play it. As I said, it's just had an upgrade, and it's available through Game Pass, so you've got even less of an excuse not to give it a go. I would persevere through the first section or so before it kind of opens up a bit and you get a good feel of exactly how the game is progressing as well, basically. But yeah.
Okay.
Definitely worth having a look at.
Very good.
I will rattle through a few things quickly as well. Lumines Remastered came. I love that game. I won't talk about it because I've spoken about it too much on the show before. It's a great puzzle game, one of my favourites ever, and it's available on Game Pass. So if you've never tried it before, give it a go. It's a musical puzzle game made by the developer of Tetris Enhanced, which got some news this week. But is it? No, sorry, Tetris Effect Enhanced.
Tetris Effect Remark,
I knew there was something wrong with what I said. But it's the game that the creator of that made when he didn't get the Tetris license, basically, previously.
But yay for games, boo for them not giving him the license.
Yeah, but arguably it's an even better musical puzzle game, possibly. But yeah, really great, and go check it out. One that I mentioned on the show before that I would play and did play a little bit of, and I think is worth mentioning, is a game called Raji, an Ancient Empire.
Oh, is that the one, the indie game that's based that actually is based in India and was created in India as well?
Yes, and it's really interesting, and it's telling a kind of story from the perspective of the gods interacting with this human, and you play as that human Raji, and you're searching for your brother Golu, I think it is, who gets kidnapped. And it's a tale that we've almost seen, like we've seen like God of War do this with Greek mythology, but we've seen other games based on Greek mythology and other sort of Norse mythology and stuff before. Haven't seen so many based on like Indian mythology, and it's very much the interaction of their gods, and their gods giving you power, and their gods giving you weaponry to deal with a epic journey, basically, or epic quest type thing. And yeah, it's got some interesting things going on with combat as well. There is some not really puzzle platforming, but kind of platforming elements, like pathfinding, and then there's a bit of that's time critical because you've got things happening behind you and stuff. But generally the game is there's some like combat sections where they do interesting stuff with the traversal of the environment as well. So if you're jumping off a pillar or jumping off a market stall thing where you can double jump off it, when you jump and then do an attack, you'll get a much bigger splash damage, so you can hit more stuff. And then there's stuff where if you twirl around a pillar, that's an attack that will stun a lot of your enemies, and then you can do other combo attacks and stuff like that as well.
I tell you what, if I span around a pillar doing a bit of pole dancing, I think I would incapacitate my enemies just by the sheer horror of such a sight.
And the main story is like kind of told to you through you hearing conversation between a couple of the gods. So there's Vishnu.
It's your favourite, Tim. It's a frame narrative.
Yeah, kind of. Vishnu and Durga, I think, the god of war. And they are like talking about you, and you being hopefully the one that can be like take the power on and kind of go on this quest, basically. And a lot of the cutscenes and stuff is told through like shadow puppetry and stuff. They kind of riff off that into a kind of more colourful version of it, but it sometimes gets to the basic like black and white shadow puppet stuff as well. So yeah, cool. Really interesting. Just a different take from a different area of the world. And yeah, like its combat does feel quite good. Slightly less sure about the platforming sections, but that could just be my aversion to platforming.
Yeah, you hate fun.
But yeah, the combat's interesting enough, and the like kind of difference in story and setting, it makes it one worth having a look at. And just again, it's on Game Pass. Go check it out if you've got Game Pass. And also
exactly
the Ascent, like you spoke about it.
Yeah.
And
what's your thought?
Right. I can entirely understand a large number of your concerns, and I can also add to those concerns, because
excellent.
This as a couch co-op game is entirely broken.
Yeah,
like how do, like all right, if you want to play couch co-op, you need, like, we wanted to play with two people, and we started and played with two people. I'll come back to exactly how frustrating it was just to play with two. But then we wanted to add a third, and then it broke the whole thing again. But basically, you need characters at the same level to play together.
Oh.
So you either start from the beginning of the game again, or as I was trying to go, like, I'm like a level 4 or 5 character. We should be able to play together. That can't be too bad. Nope, because they put them in without any weaponry, like little pea shooter, level 1, bang, bang, bang. And the two people I was playing with had no fun. And yeah, that needs especially in an environment where they have a cloning shop in the game that you can't visit. You need the ability to clone your character so that a guest can play with a different version of your character that they can then just pick up other weapons with or something. It needs something like that to be a playable couch co-op game. Otherwise, it's not, basically.
Don't you secretly want to love this game, though? I really, really wish it was better to play, because it looks phenomenal.
Yeah, I will say, it looks phenomenal. It also, I encountered, not only with that being a problem of the setup of the game, I encountered a litany of bugs when I was playing it to start with.
A bit buggy.
But it had an update, and since that update, I have not encountered a single bug. Like, not one that I've seen. And I've saw numerous examples of things going wrong before. And I don't know if it's the fact that my character's leveled up a bit more, but it does seem that the aiming is a little bit more sticky than it was. And it could just be my character leveling up, but that could also be part of the update. But I swear it looks even nicer than it did, and it looked pretty nice to start with as well. So
I think there's some optimizations that they've applied to it. Certainly on PC, I think they've added ray tracing. I booted it up to have a quick look. It looks even shinier and nicer, but
I think they added ray tracing on the console as well, from what I can see.
I don't think they have yet.
Because I heard that there was they hadn't pushed an update that they pushed to PC at launch to the Xbox version, but then they subsequently did. And I don't know if that's a version behind what you're saying.
I have a feeling it might be.
But as I said, it definitely looked a bit shinier and it looked quite nice to start with. But for all of those problems and all of the things I've encountered, and the fact that, you can get in places where you're like, I don't know if I can get through this, I'm getting pummeled. And like you say, like, you can just get ambushed from places, which I end up quite liking in a way of like, okay, I'm just out in the shops. Oh no, there's a fight. Okay, I've killed a few innocent bystanders. Sorry. Oh.
but I mean, I don't know. I think because your viewport is so zoomed in.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, where the hell did they come from? Because like, they'll climb out of bloody garbage receptacles, as far as I can work out.
But they do actually, like, on some parts of the levels, like, climb from underneath the structure and actually come on top of you and stuff. So, I for all the problems I've had with it, I kind of can't start playing it. Like, I've unlocked some really cool weaponry now. I've got, like, homing missiles as one of my powers, and, like, an ability to, like, when someone dies, they expand and blow up, and then it, like, that causes splash damage to people around them and stuff.
Literally.
Yeah. And so those two powers in conjunction have been quite good fun. And yeah, like, it's definitely still got problems, but I'd really like to play it online with some people that have got similar level characters. So if anyone's playing it, I think I'm like level 9 or 10 or so now.
Okay.
I'd be interested to see if that makes a difference, because I think it could be a really fun game if you've got a few people playing together that have got different characters.
I want to love it more than I do.
Yeah. I do love it more than I did, but I still can't recommend it as a couch co-op game in the present way that it presents that, because I don't see how you could ever feasibly have a fun game unless you're playing from the beginning every time, which seems very reductive.
Yep. It is anyway, sadly style over substance still, I think, the Ascent.
Yeah, as I said, though, I can't stop playing it, and I'm not entirely sure why, but I've enjoyed all of these games this week, and if I had a choice about which one to go back to now, it would probably be the Ascent.
Yeah. Interesting. So there we go. So those are the games which we done played. Nothing particularly new, but that's because nothing particularly new has really come out, quite frankly.
Well, there was a couple of games in the last couple of days.
We haven't
really had a time to fully explore those, and so we'll get onto that next week, possibly. But
Abso-flippin-lutely. But that's next week's news. That's too new for this news. So we're going to get slightly less new news, and it's going to be the news. Are you ready for the news, Tim?
Are we saying this is old news?
No, this is new news. This is current news. It's
new,
not
old news. Old new.
It's no. It's not like next week's lottery numbers news, I'm afraid.
Oh,
yeah, I know. But there is some news. Focus Home Interactive. Tim, pop quiz.
Yes.
What Focus Home Interactive published?
Games.
Yeah. Curse of the Dead Gods, World War Z, The Surge 2, A Plague Tale: Innocence. All of them have come from Focus Interactive and Farming Simulator 2019. Focus Interactive have gone and purchased a really slightly random percent, but I'm assuming a controlling percentage of Dotemu, and that is the Paris-based studio known most recently for kind of its redos of retro games. Well, not redos of retro games, kind of new entries in retro games.
Sequels
series.
to retro games.
Yeah, exactly. So Streets of Rage 4, which came out relatively recently.
Which was an excellent sequel to an old game.
Absolutely spot on, that game. And also the revival of Windjammers as well.
Windjammers 2 coming out, yep.
Yep, and one thing they're working on at the moment as well that I'm very excited about is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, because man, I love that. I love those arcade games in the SNES version.
That just reminded me though, and just a little nod to that from the Ascent. I like the fact that enemies in the Ascent do get blasted towards the screen at times. That's a little nod to the old Turtles.
Still not as fun
well,
as drop kicking a foot soldier though. And I think they're
very
also
little is in life, Dan. Very little is.
I know. And they're also, I think, aren't Dotemu responsible for Metal Slug Tactics?
I believe so. Yeah, and that's a game that we saw in what we will be talking about in a minute as well. But I'm quite excited for that game. So yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Focus Home bringing them into the fold, and I think good. I mean, Dotemu are kind of pretty. A lot of low-key awesome stuff, as in low-key, not as in low-key.
Not as in God of Mischief.
Not as in God of Mischief. Have you watched that telly-series? Have you watched that on Disney+? Quite liked it. Made my brain.
I liked it. It was fun.
It was.
Didn't take itself too seriously in a very good way.
And man, Richard E. Grant should not wear spandex.
I mean, he should and he shouldn't. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, fair enough.
But crocodiles are good.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, moving swiftly on. So good for .mu. Hopefully, it's going to mean that they can continue to push out awesome bits of new age fun with a vintage feel, which is the tagline for this episode, by the sounds of things. And one of Google's closed game studios has reopened and immediately rebranded itself. So apparently this is Typhoon Studios, who were one of the in-house game developers Google shut down, have come back together under a new name. The band has come back together. They're still in Montreal, and they'll go by the name Raccoon Logic, and are going to pick up pretty much where they left off. From under their old name and old guise of Typhoon Studios, including reclaiming the rights to Journey to the Savage Planet.
Right, I have mixed feelings on this news.
Okay, all right. Hit me with it, Timothy.
I really like Journey to the Savage Planet. It was a fun little game, kind of vibrant universe, shooty monsters stuff. Like, it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
The studio that the news is associated with has come under some criticism for its founding photo surfacing, and it's, 35 to 40 people, and every single one of them are white dude, some of them with beards. But it's come under criticism for that, and it's one of those things where you would have thought that most places might do a bit better than that these days. That's all I'll say. Like, I like your games. Not sure I like your hiring policies.
I mean,
it's getting really difficult to separate exactly, what's acceptable in video game company structure at the moment, and divorcing it from the games that they make as well. So
I mean, sadly, the nature of the beast is just until I think there's kind of the renewed interest in STEM subjects, and particularly making it a really good viable option for kids of any gender. Until that fully works through the system, with people going through to degree level and then getting jobs, I don't think we're yet going to see a major change. But 35 blokes, all white and dudes, is come on, that's not the player chance. I would argue.
And before, just to head things off at the pass, fully aware that we are presently 2 out of
white dudes.
Normally 3 white dudes that make up this podcast that get to talk about. But just encourage.
And believe you me, we know we could do better. In many, many ways.
The one thing I'll say in our defense is we have done what we could do to encourage other people and other voices to speak up. We have guests on the show when we can, and that's been a little bit more difficult during COVID, and also while we've been behind the scenes changing technology that we've been experimenting with the video side of things and other stuff like that. But yeah, I just encourage other voices to speak up and do what we can in that regard, and like encouraging our listeners to do similar as well. And I know there's people we have inspired to do podcasting and to take up podcasting in the past, so hopefully that's something at least. But yeah, anyway, like as I said, that's a weird slippery slope at the moment, but I think it's something that we need to be mentioning, even if we don't necessarily deserve to be criticizing it anyway, basically.
Yeah, I mean, well, all I will say is everyone's welcome in the good ship BRB.
Yeah.
Unless you're a bellend, and you can bugger off.
Yeah, I don't care who you are, what you look like, as long as you're not a bellend, basically.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's the only criteria. Don't be a dick. Simple as that. or don't be any form of genitalia.
Yes. Whatever form of genitalia you don't want to be, don't be an
outie, you know.
Yep.
That whole area. Don't make that your kind of persona.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
I'm
gonna back away from this before I dig myself an even deeper hole.
Just be a nice person. That's what we'll go with, Dan.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what we'll end on. Just be nice.
There we go.
Be
That's
nice.
a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's not all there was this week. There was also a bit of indie action as well on
There's a lot of indie action
on behalf of Xbox and Nintendo. Nintendo more recently, and I just thought rather than go through absolutely all of these, I was just going to kind of touch on a couple of things that caught my eye. I mean, first of all, with Xbox, Tim, is there anything that jumped out at you?
The one thing I will say, it's generally, we mentioned it when talking about a variety of games, but it's been a good week for Game Pass in terms of the news games coming out. A couple of the games that were mentioned in this Idea Xbox showcase are already out on Game Pass. There's also been a whole selection of games we haven't even mentioned this week. There was a load of the old kind of retro Codemasters stuff that we kind of predicted might come to Game Pass through EA and stuff like that as well, possibly. I'm not sure if it's through EA Play, but there's a load of the old Dirt Rally stuff. There's a couple of F1 games up there now, and a load of other a load of other stuff. I think Grid, but you know, there's a selection
F1 2019's on there.
Yeah, F1 2019 and 2020, I believe.
And 2020.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't be, as we previously discussed, I wouldn't be surprised if the F1 games start getting the same day and date treatment. Some of the other franchises too going forward now that it's owned by EA.
And Library of Runeria, which is out on Game Pass now, basically. But yeah, like I tell you one thing that I found interesting that stood out for me, just because it was entirely different to every other game that was there. And it was something that I don't think would have stood out just from watching the trailer. But anyone that didn't watch this Idea Xbox presentation, it was like a 3-hour-long presentation, which makes it difficult for us to digest everything.
I just dipped into the trailers on YouTube.
Yeah, okay. And so this is one thing I think I'll highlight because they talked about it, and it's one of the things where they spoke to one of the developers. The Veil Shadow of the Crown, I believe it was called. And it's an audio game, basically, an audio-based game. I don't know if there's any visual component, or if there is, it's more abstract by the looks of things, basically. But but it kind of spoke to the developer, and it is a game almost not necessarily designed for blind people, but that were very much has blind people in mind. And one of the people that was presenting the whole overall Idea Xbox presentation is a guy called Blind Gamer Steve, who I've seen doing some stuff before. I can't remember exactly where I've come across him before, but he was presenting some of this as well, and he did part of the interview and stuff, and was just talking about the fact that there isn't actually that much like video games being made that are entirely appropriate for blind video gamers, basically, and it's not something you often necessarily think about. But yeah, they talked about just making and designing a game that could be based on audio, and obviously it's kind of focused on if you turn towards something that will come more into focus, and then you can move towards that type of thing. But yeah, it sounded intriguing enough to the point where, especially if this is something that's coming to Game Pass, it gives easy access to a lot of people that wouldn't necessarily otherwise try something like this. But also, hopefully, makes it more likely that something like this can be successful and then give access to more people that wouldn't necessarily be able to get access to games otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it'll be a really interesting showcase of like some of the spatial audio technology that they're pushing on Xbox as well. I know if you buy the most recent version of the Xbox wireless headset specifically designed for the Series S and X, that you do get, I think, Dolby Atmos chucked in for free with that. So I'd be interested to see if they're really kind of doubling down on that technology. I mean, hey, it looks really interesting. I'm definitely going to give it a go. Yeah, whether, you know, I love the idea of it. Whether or not it will stick the landing, I don't yet know. But I'm willing, I want it to succeed, and I'll definitely give it a go.
Okay. And, yeah, do you want to highlight one that stood out for you?
Yeah, I mean, just because I don't know why, perhaps I'm just because I'm turning into an old bugger. I'm really starting to get into my just kind of games that are just beautifully chill. And all you have to do is just do relaxing things. And Lightyear Frontier looks amazing. When I first saw
Stardew Valley with mechs, basically.
Yeah, well, I actually thought, when I initially saw the video in the background when I wasn't paying attention, I was like, is that the new No Man's Sky update? But no, it's not the new No Man's Sky update. It's a bit like, it's got a bit of Astroneer to it. It's got a little bit of
Stardew
No
Valley,
Man's Sky-ish to it. And all those kind of things where basically make a lovely place to live on a planet. Off you go. Oh, and you can have a mech because mechs are awesome.
And do you think, it didn't really mention, but do you think the 4 different coloured mechs at the end hinted at possible 4-player as well?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that might be something they were hinting towards at least, but yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I'll just mention, just because it segues nicely anyway, and it was the next game, so the Wandering Village looks like it was like, what if Ghibli made a Stardew Valley game as well, basically. That looked kind of interesting and from that perspective too. But the other one you highlighted was Lab Rat.
Yeah, I just highlighted this because I thought it looked woefully derivative.
Okay, right, fine. I thought you were going to say you were interested in it. I was like, okay, I like the sound of it. And then it was like, you just made a kind of lesser man's Portal by the looks of it.
Well, it's like, hey, aren't robot ladies funny?
Yeah.
Look, you're a lab rat.
Maybe that trailer didn't show it off too well.
No.
Puzzle games maybe don't translate too well into trailers, possibly. But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I just highlighted it because I thought most of the other stuff was, and quite a lot of what we're seeing highlighted in these indie presentations, is really interesting new takes. I think that's what's really exciting about a lot of the indie developments going on at the moment. But I was kind of I just highlighted that because I thought, really? Couldn't we do a bit? You know, I'm happy to be proved wrong. Don't get me. You know, it may well be that trailer didn't do it justice. Yeah, I just thought it seemed very derivative.
Well, I had a similar feeling from Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous as well. Right? Pathfinder was a thing. I'm like, could I be interested in this? Looks like a little dungeon crawler. Could be quite fun. And then it seems like dungeon crawling, religious based kind of setting. And I'm like, I'm not entirely sure I'm down with that, basically, but. Yeah. If it's coming to Game Pass, it's one I might try out though and see. Likewise, a game that I haven't played any of the previous ones. They didn't really attract me that well, but Ollie World looks more interesting than I thought, and I'm definitely going to give it a try if it's coming to Game Pass, basically.
Yeah, why not?
And yeah, like that's one that I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I'm more interested in that than I thought I would be, possibly.
Can I just say one thing, Lo? Paparazzi, no.
No.
Bad game.
Bad dog.
Bad in your corner. I mean, seriously, what the? It's about basically whoring your pet out to make you money on the internet by turning it into an Insta star.
Yeah.
For that, mate.
And there was a few other games I was a bit less sold on, and a few things I'm a bit like, I'm not sure I like the look of that so much.
But there are a couple. It's not just Microsoft who have been out about, teasing us with indie goodness, because Nintendo have been doing the same as well. And I was actually surprised that they managed to kind of essentially be, hey, you can get this now. And it was like the launch of certain titles. And when the release date
Nintendo like to do that, though.
They like to do it. And
shadow dropping, I've heard that referred to as, basically.
Yes, indeed.
When you actually get something out and it hasn't been leaked and you're just, dropping it without any build-up, basically.
But what excited me great, because I love me a Metroidvania. I also loved Axiom Verge, so I was very excited to see Axiom Verge appear. Now, I don't know whether or not I'm going to pick this up on PC or Switch. There's no Xbox version that I can see at the moment. But I might pick it up on PC just so I can, enjoy it with proper set headphones, all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, Axiom Verge, great game. Axiom Verge 2 looks fantastic. Really want to try it. May well pick it up in the not too distant future.
See, there's two games here that I'm really excited about, and you've already skipped over one of them. But yeah, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk looks like a follow-up. Cyberpunk, rather, sorry, yes. Too much cyberpunk in my life right now. I just automatically went to cyberpunk rather than cyberpunk. Yeah, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk looks like a spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio.
Jet Set Radio, yeah.
Even got the creator of the soundtrack, which, again, I'm going to mention this even though, but I was following him on Twitter for quite some time, the creator and of the writer of the soundtrack, basically. And the composer. I unfollowed him because he got really creepy on quite young girls telling him to come to Japan. So, just putting that out there. But anyway, I'm
Turn the sound off.
I'm still trying to...
But enjoy the rest of the game.
Yeah, still trying to actually hopefully be excited for that game. But that's not coming out till next year, so that's a bit of a shame. And the other one I was really excited about isn't coming till next year as well. That's Metal Slug Tactics, which I when they announced that, I was like, okay, I didn't know I'd be wanting to buy a Metal Slug game today. But yeah, that looks like a really good tactic game. The one thing they showed that they haven't really showed off before is like, when you come to an edge of a map, the next map will kind of pop up out of before and kind of they've got some interesting different design mechanics going on, and that game looks like it's going to be fun. There's definitely a team of people. I'm not sure if that's going to translate to any co-op or anything, but I'm on board for that game already. I do like my turn-based tactic games, and that looks like it's going to be a fun little version of that with its little chibi graphics and stuff. But yeah.
Very nice. Well, I quite like the look of Eastwood as well. Eastward. Not Eastward. Not Eastwood. Not a bit of wood that's in an easterly direction.
Yes.
Eastward.
It's
this generation's Chenois, the way I'm describing it. So it's looks like kind of a 16-bit, usual retro top-down RPG game that's being kind of it's telling the story about going through a society that's about to collapse, and you're going on an adventure to the unknown. Now, so far so generic, right? But the visual styling of this game looks absolutely spot on, and the music, certainly the music on the trailer, flat out incredible. If they can nail the rest of the look and feel of the game as well as they've nailed the trailer, definitely worth checking out. Not sure how much it's going to cost as yet. It's due out, I believe, mid-September this year.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to be able to pick it up on PC as well. Really intrigued by this game. Yeah, really, really like the look of it. I mentioned Tetris Effect earlier on in the show. Tetris Effect Connected was announced for Nintendo Switch, showing off some multiplayer stuff as well. I think online and local multiplayer. And I think that seems to be an update that's going to come to the previous versions of Tetris Effect by the looks of things as well. So that's one for all console owners to be interested in. October the 8th. This year. There we go.
So there we go.
And other stuff that was announced that we're not going to go into in too much more detail. We'll do Xbox first. There was also Sam & Max Save the World Remastered. We didn't mention it because I think it's a fairly known quantity that it's probably going to be pretty awesome. Black Book out now. Aeon Drive, that's out in fall 2021. Paparazzi, don't you flipping dare buy that. Evil Genius 2, World Domination. Again, it's a bit like a Dungeon Keeper type thing. Wasn't massively impressed. The big con, Meet the Cast. That's out the end of this month. Space Lines from the Far Out. That's towards the end of this season. So end of they say. You
didn't want to say fall, and you've forgotten the word autumn.
I did forget the word autumn. The Veil we talked about, and Artful Escape as well. Other stuff that was mentioned in Nintendo's stream was Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, which looks like a match 3 dungeon crawlery thing.
Yeah, that looks
weird.
Which
could be interesting. But it's
Toem looks like it could be interesting as well, the next one.
Yep, that's out in
Weird
autumn.
photography-based thing, but yeah, that looked fun, possibly.
Then there is Far, Changing Tides, which I haven't really wrapped my head around yet. I'm not gonna lie. But you set sail and discover the wonders of a flooded world. Well, good job if you're sailing, because the world's flooded. That's out in early next year.
Waterworld. Without Kevin Costner, possibly.
Then there's Loop Hero, which is a roguelike deck building card thing.
That got like a lot of buzz when it came out on PC, so that's one I was almost certain would come out on Switch at some stage, and I think would be a good fit for it by the looks of things. And yeah, the next one, Boyfriend Dungeon, actually already came out on Game Pass, by the way. That was the other one that came out on Game Pass this week. So that's out now on Switch as well, but you can play it for free on Game Pass as well. So there you go.
And then there's also Necrobarista, The Final Pour, which is Necrobarista, which I know has got a lot of buzz. I haven't personally really played any of the Necrobarista games, but hey, you know.
Bridge between worlds where the living can have coffee with the dead, apparently. Well
thank
the dead
God
can
for
have
that.
one last coffee with the living, I think it is, basically. But yeah,
there we go. So that's your lot. That was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. Tim!
Yes?
That means we need to wrap up the show, mate. Anything you'd like to say about Gosh, other than remind people they can still continue to do awesome things in under the guise of Geek Out for Gosh, raising money for a fantastic children's hospital.
Yep, that is all the major news for this week. But yeah, don't forget you can stream or support other people streaming games, and if you stream and raise £250 or more, you can get an exclusive insert coin T-shirt and pin for doing so, but you can just raise any amount of money, or as I said, support some other people that are doing so by streaming some games, raising some cash for Great Ormond Street Hospital, or GOSH as we refer to it, and you can get some more details on their website or through some of their social media channels. On Twitter they are at Geek Out for Gosh, or search out their website gosh.org and search Geek Out 4 Gosh.
There we go, do that. And we've also got a question, Timothy. You ready?
Ooh,
a question from the Discord.
Yep.
Question from the Discord. And you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Hit me.
I'm going to give you. Okay. From Safe for Pandas. Are there any bad games you think people should play in order to make them appreciate how well designed other brackets better games in the same genre are?
I know where he's going out with that question, and it's not exactly this, but I think there are a lot of people online that would benefit from trying to create a very simple game in Unity. There's been a few, Kirk from, I think, is it the Total Gamer he's at now? I can't remember him giving him the right plug there. But yeah, basically, there's been a few sort of actual people in games media creating stuff in Unity and messing around with the known weirdly difficult task of getting a character to walk through a door successfully and stuff like that. And yeah, generally making and creating doors and that being difficult. But I really think there's a number of gamers out there that don't appreciate how difficult it is to make a game. And even a bad game can have a really good idea. So yeah, I don't discourage people from playing bad games. I know we kind of ostensibly do that on the podcast every week. We kind of warn people, this is a game you should play and this is a game you shouldn't. But I kind of always try and find a reason why someone might be interested in the game we're talking about. Sometimes that does become a very reductive kind of audience, and like you've kind of reduced it to the point of, I'd only play this if you're a really hardcore fan of the genre type thing. But yeah, generally, like, yeah, as I said, even a bad game can have a good idea. And as you say, there are games that are so bad that they might make you appreciate other games. I think something from our generation that possibly made us appreciate more about the way a game is made that you don't see anymore these days is especially, it's not something that persists and stays forever, but a bad port of a game. Like Street Fighter 2 is one of the best like fighting games of all time and has spawned even better games on the back of it possibly. But Street Fighter 2 on the Amiga was horrible. And
that was some hot turd right there.
That was a terrible, terrible game. And so, yeah, playing a bad version, especially like a retro kind of version, and there was days where you would have arcade games that were brilliant and bad arcade ports of them. And as I said, there was a game I spoke about recently, that Cotton reboot, that was a game that may have disappeared, not because it was a bad game, but because it had bad ports of the arcade game that came to home consoles, and especially by the looks of things, home consoles outside of Japan. So yeah, it's just, as I said, there are good reasons to play bad games. And yeah, I can't think of a particularly bad game that makes it like, that would offset another good game in terms of, this is make you appreciate another good game. But there are things that, within a game that might make you do that, basically.
I mean, I think for me, the one I would think back to is a game I secretly wanted to love, but was looking back at it now, utter pants. And
You're
that
just a glutton for punishment.
I am just, if you think back to the late 80s, early 90s, the Turtles game that was released by Ultra.
Okay.
It was just terrible. I mean, it's one of those games where I don't mind a difficult game that takes skill. I do mind a cheap game that actively works against you. In fact, actually, I'm going to slightly expand that to... I'll tell you what, I'm going to take editorial privilege here.
Some bad Simpsons games you're making me remember here as well, basically.
I'm sorry, mate. But one of the things that gets my goat and makes me realise how great AI can be when it's programmed correctly is the overuse of mechanics such as rubber banding. And that you can find that you can find in games that are otherwise great, looking at you, Super Mario Kart, but have atrocious rubber banding. So there we go. Not quite the question you asked, but I've turned it into one I'm going to answer. So
that's what we both did anyway. So.
Yeah, I know, right?
Also, someone asked me someone asked us past week what was the worst game you ever played, and the game I was trying to remember to answer was a game called. I think it was a game that we bought and were really disappointed in, that we spent the first game that we spent money on, we were really disappointed in. It was a game called Genius. I bought it from a stall in a market. And
there's your problem, mate.
Yeah, the box art, but it was Genius as in G and then Gap, NUIS, I think it was.
Man, the 90s were great.
But yeah, I do not remember that being a good game. But hey,
no.
There you go.
There we go. So that's your lot, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to come along and say hello or even ask us a question that may or may not get read out, depending how we're doing for time, but will eventually get read out on the show, make sure you head on over to www.BigRedBarel.com. You're in the top right-ish corner of the main bit of the website. You should see a button to Discord. Just click on there, come along, say hello. We're all lovely in there, and always try our best to get like-minded people having a chat, having a natter, maybe even play some games together. Wouldn't that be lovely? Yes, I think it would. You can also find us on Twitter at BigRedBarel, no surprises there, facebook.com/BigRedBarel, and I'm sure an absolute cavalcade of other stuff that involves the word slash and Big Red Barrel. There we go. Come say hello. We like it when people say hello. And another thing you can do if you've been reveling in, I think our total combined episode count is probably over 500 on this particular feed if you count our previous guises. If you leave us a review, it really helps us spread the word and get out there. And no matter where you listen, be it Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Stitcher, Castbox, you can leave a review. We have some magic internet gremlins who will go and find those reviews and burn them straight into our eyeballs, so we will read them out.
And at that point, it'll tickle a little bit of the back of our brain and make us feel happy.
Absolutely. It's like a sneeze, but better. Right, shall I finish the show then, Tim, before I continue talking anymore? I think that's probably a good thing. So thank you so much for listening. We really, really do appreciate it. And just make sure to come along and say hi, because we like it when people say hi. But all that's really left is for me to remind you that I have been Dan.
I might have been Tim.
And Coleman will be editing the show, so say thank you to Coleman on all of the things.
Secret magic hands are working away silently.
I know. In a Portsmouth-based audio sweatshop. Bless him. Anyway, until next time, dear listeners, toodle bye.
We wouldn't keep him in Portsmouth. We're not that cruel.
Your ears are quite welcome
for the podcasting goodness that you just heard.
Why not roll on over
to BigRedBarel.com
for more podcasts,
news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarel.com.
I know all I can assume is that he is finally getting to the bottom of this whole COVID thing. What that's me. Actually, no. What I don't know what Coleman does.
Yeah, no one knows it. Coleman doesn't know what Coleman does. It's too secret.
No, he doesn't. Which is terrible.